Have you ever gone through a hard time in your life and then looking back, you realize it was actually God protecting you and redirecting you to your destiny? In this episode, we discuss Yusuf alayhi salam's imprisonment and how Allah's rescue may come in unexpected forms. We also discuss the Quranic prescription for calling others to Islam. This is Quran Conversations, the podcast for anyone who wishes to unlock the meaning and healing power of the Quran. I'm your host, Dalia Mogahed, an author, researcher, and a student of the Quran. I'll be in conversation with one of my dearest teachers, Imam Muhammad Majid, a scholar of the Quran and longtime family counselor and congregational leader. We discuss ayah 34 to 38 today, covering Yusuf's entering prison and responding to his cellmate's request for dream interpretation. If you're enjoying this podcast, please review it on your podcasting platform. It helps us more than you know. Quran Conversations is sponsored by Fawakih, an online learning platform for Quranic Arabic, which I myself use. Start your journey in unlocking the language of the Quran. Go to fawakih.org/journey. We hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. Make sure to stay until the end to hear this week's reflection prompt. For more spiritual insights, follow me on Instagram at Dalia Mogahed. Without further ado, let's dive into the episode. I'm here with my teacher, Sheikh Muhammad Majid, and we are working through the most exquisite surah, Surah Yusuf, and today we are starting with ayah number 34. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاستجاب له ربه فصرف عنه كيدهن إنه هو السميع العليم. And his Lord answered his prayer and protected him from their treachery. He is the all-hearing, the all-knowing. So to start out, I can begin by observing that in this ayah, Allah responded and accepted his plea and removed the temptation and kept him steadfast. And so we discussed that at length last episode that the dua he made was one of incredible humility, that he was first admitting that he needed help to resist this temptation. He didn't have pride that he was strong in and of himself. And that admission of vulnerability is actually how we have to be in order to protect ourselves. When we think we're above a sin, we don't see our fallibility. That's actually the prerequisite, or the moment that happens right before we fall into that sin. So that's the first thing. And so it's showing us what to pray for. And then what is so interesting is that of course, we will discover in the next ayah that he goes to prison as a result of his prayer being answered. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was praying to be protected from sin and not to be protected from even the harm of these people in terms of punishment, which is exactly what happened. His priority was the protection of his soul and not the protection, in fact, even of his body. And it's really a very deep message that shows us what to pray for, what really matters as we make meaning of our lives. What do we value?
Absolutely. Now, mashallah, there's two types of prisons: physical prisons and spiritual prisons.
Yeah.
A person could be within walls of physical prison but been liberated. As one of the poets says, that you are free even if you are behind bars. One of the things that in this dua that ulama talks about is they say that he says if you don't protect me, I may fall into the sin.
Yeah.
Which is in every spiritual struggle in life, you have to ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help. And that's why Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to Mu'az ibn Jabal, Wallahi inni la uhibbuka ya Mu'az. Said, oh Mu'az, by Allah, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
لا تدعن أن تقول في دبر كل صلاة. Don't forget to say after every prayer, اللهم إني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. Allah, help me, aid me, that to be able to remember you and to be grateful to you and to worship you in a way you deserve to be worshipped. It's very interesting. He asked him, Rasulullah asked us to ask Allah to seek help, to remember Him, but the seeking help itself is a remembrance of Allah. And that's why they قل لا ملجأ من الله إلا إليه. There's no way to flee from Allah except to Him. This idea فَفِرُّوا إلى الله, flee to Allah. Because in the time of challenging time, whether it's temptations, whether the emotional, psychological trouble that we go through, sometimes life take a toll on us. And we feel not motivated. Even sometimes our prayer is not intact. This is the time that you seek the help of Allah for us to go back to our game, to pray and to connect with Allah. But Yusuf alayhi salam, in this statement, teaching all of us that the vulnerability of all of us. Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him, but He saved him by taking him to prison. فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away the temptation, the challenge, and so forth. But Yusuf alayhi salam have seek that help. And Allah have answered. Some ulama of Raqaiq says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered this prayer of us. And يصرف عنا السوء, that Allah protect us from doing what harmful and what is difficult in terms of spiritual challenges to us and the vulnerability that we experience at the moment. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose how to do yasrif, take it away, like you should dodging the bullet, the attack. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove us from a situation that we are in. Say if a person working in a very toxic environment.
Yeah.
And he asking Allah, oh Allah, save me from this environment. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does sometimes you get laid off.
Right.
You have hesitance to exit, worried about your risk, and get laid off. You have a boss harassing someone, especially in the dynamic of male and female. A sister might find that there's somebody harassing her, and she said, "Why is going to have a job?" And then over a sudden, somebody offer her a job, and she left her. Before you make a dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. The last things I want to say in this saraf, يعني يصرف السوء, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that you have to accept the means by which He protecting us. Because sometimes you might plan things to say, I'm going to exit this way, I'm going to do this way. But all of a sudden, Allah remove us in a way that we don't even have imagined. They say, oh, wow. I remember when somebody told me once that they were in the environment that very toxic and so forth. And subhanallah, they had to go and take care of a family who's not feeling well. And therefore, they had to write the notice. And when they went there, subhanallah, they found a job in the other city, better than that job, get paid. I said, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have you, rewarded you by taking care of your loved one, have you to spend time with them, and then give you a new job and get you out of that situation. So you
Mashallah.
never know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protect us. In this case, he protected Yusuf by taking him to prison.
Yes. And, this is such an important lesson that we also hear from in the story of Al-Khidr and Musa alayhi salam. I mean, this is one of the main lessons of that story is calamities. On the surface, they are calamities, like puncturing a boat. And it belongs to needy people. And you've now, damaged their means of livelihood. And this is terrible. Why are you doing this? And yet it was their protection.
Yeah.
By puncturing the boat, they were saved from enslavement by a tyrant.
Absolutely. That's a good
and
example.
So, and so often in our lives, our calamities are in fact protections.
Yeah.
It's the story of, we all know the story of Malcolm X, where it very similarly, his prison time was his being saved.
Transformation.
He was saved. He was protected.
Absolutely. And there's many stories like that. You hear from many people that say, there's an event in my life have really changed my life and become a better person. It's that events that have really made me make the change that I need and push me to do change. Like Ibn Atta Iskandari says, لم يأتي الله بلطائف الامتنان سق إليه بسلاسل الامتحان. Said, you might not come to the gentle way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings you sometime in a way that it look like tough and rough, but that's called tough love. Like bring you back to Him, And then, Rumi said, the wound in your body is where the light comes through. Therefore, that Yusuf alayhi salam, he was caring so much about his spiritual well-being. He said to Allah, "As-sijnu habbu ilayya," Allah to go to prison. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and then he said, if you don't protect me, I might fall into this sin. Then Allah said, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala respond to his dua, وَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُ. It's just, and by the way, the word, the two names of Allah, As-Sami' Al-Alim.
Yes.
Because sometimes people asking, is Allah hearing our prayer? Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knowing what happened in Gaza? Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the suffering of people in Palestine? Yeah, He sees it all and He knows it all. And He hears the dua of those people. And their dua is not going to go to waste. Like He protected Yusuf alayhi salam and have him to prosper, He will do that for those people. They shall overcome. But it's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Would you like to read the next ayah?
Yes, but one thing I want to say, if I may.
Yeah, please.
The Yusuf alayhi salam, he said, kaydahunna, that they plot against me. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنَّ. That means that no longer they will be able to put him into this test of harassment. The point is that the word Quran said, يَكِدُونَ كَيْدًا وَأَكِيدُ كَيْدًا. That people plot, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows they're plotting. The word kada yakidu in Arabic, it means a person plan harm against somebody. And that person is not knowing about it, or conspiracy, and then they get together and they plot. In many places in the world, there's a lot of plotting, you see, against innocent people. Don't think Allah does not know that. And therefore, إن الله لا يهدي كيد الخائنين. Does not make their kaid prevail. They will eventually will be exposed. Just I want to say, because in this difficult time, people says the plot is greater than us. Allah يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا. Allah says. Therefore, that you have to have that confidence, that spiritual resilience. Inshallah.
Yeah. But Allah's plan is greater.
Great.
And He's in control.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان. ثم بدا لهم من بعد ما رأوا الآيات ليسجننه حتى حين.
In the end, they thought it best, after seeing all the signs of his innocence, that they should imprison him for a while.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very realistic response from powerful people when they want to manage a scandal. They need someone to go down. And it's never the powerful person. It's always a staffer, a servant. Somebody has to take the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so despite with full knowledge of his innocence, they needed the public optics of him being in prison.
Yeah. The tabloid newspapers is all over the place saying the first lady or the wife of the prime minister is in love with this guy.
Yeah.
And they said, we need to kill it. We need to stop the social media. We need to stop TikTok. We need to stop those. We need to kill it now. And therefore, to do so, we have to re-engineer the whole thing by saying, no, he was wrong, and take him to prison. Number one, it will look like he is at fault. Number two, we scare everyone who's talking about it. Number three, we'll put him away. That's so people forget about it. Because now he's popular. Everyone likes to see how beautiful he is, how handsome he is. Therefore, we're going to take his popularity and going to just hide him away. So the thing dies out.
Kill the story.
Yeah, to die down.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. The things that, but Allah said, من بعد ما رأوا الآيات.
Yeah.
There's nothing more painful than you know that you've been wronged, and the person who wronged you, they know that they have wronged you. It's not a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
They saw the evidence. The evidence was so clear that Yusuf alayhi salam was not at fault.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for the sake of prestige, reputations, the protection of the elite, somebody has to go to prison.
Yeah.
This reminds me in American history that many times there was a crime that committed where a black person was killed for it.
Yes.
The whole town knew who did the crime, and they hanged a black person.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, this idea of try to cover injustice by creating false propaganda, misinformation, so that you try to cover the scandal. It doesn't work, because eventually somebody will know. In this life before next life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, after they saw ayat, the word ayat is very strong. That means there's no doubt of the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
All the signs say this, he is innocent. And yet, he was put in prison. You know how many prisoners, innocent people today, whether in the Muslim countries, whether in America, prisons have many innocent people. And sometimes people that are innocent being discovered after 25 years, 30 years of a DNA. Like the African American guys from New York or New Jersey being freed after a while. But I want to say that, the system of oppressions, and systematic racism, and going after people after we know that they are being framed, sometimes entrapment, sometimes all kind of things that lead people to go to prison, was unfair system. Yeah. And sometimes you have somebody go to prison because didn't have money to hire a good lawyer, or the lawyer slept through the to the trial because they're free, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the wealthy person can get away with it
Right.
because have the means to protect themselves legally. But one of the things that I just want to say from Islamic perspective, in the legal system, judicial system, the judge become an advocate for the people being standing before him. Are you sure? Did you do that? Show me the evidence. If the single shred of doubt, الحدود الشبهات أدرى الحدود بالشبهات. If there's a threat of doubt, there's nothing will be applied on that person. But he doesn't have to have a lawyer. The judge has to make sure that this person have all the legal tools and means for the defense. Rasulullah said something very powerful. He said, إنما أنا بشر. I'm human being. وأنه يأتيني الخصمان منكم. People of dispute have a dispute may stand before me. And one of them may be more eloquent in representing their case. وقد يكون أحدهم ألحن بحجته من الآخر. He's a good lawyer. He's good, able to argue their case. فأقضي له. Then I issue a verdict for this person who was so eloquent and so forth. فمن قضيت له بحق أخيه. If I issue a verdict for somebody, knowing that is not their right, I give them something that's not theirs. فإنما هي قطعة من نار, he said. He said, I'm giving them a piece of hellfire. Wow. Let them then take it or leave it, which is the akhirah dimension in the system. There used to be a judge like that in Sudan. Before he started his court, he passed away, Allah bless his soul. He would say, there's a judgment in this dunya and there's judgment in akhirah. I might make a mistake. As you liberate and deliberate, in this case, I may still make a mistake, but Allah will not make a mistake. Yeah. Be careful when you stand in the court of Allah. In that judge, there's some people who withdraw their cases because of the introduction. Really? Yes, because of the introduction. Like, I'm not going to do it. And keep reminding them of Allah before he starts the court procedure. He will say that to them. There's the other court. You might drop dead after leaving this court, he will say to them. And then you're immediately in the other court, and that court, you cannot deceive anyone.
And that's why Rasulullah was so adamant about the dangers and the sin of bearing false witness.
Yes, absolutely.
We're reminded so many times of how dangerous this is to our soul. And it also makes me think of, the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, where South Africa is suing suing Israel for genocide. And everyone is very frustrated by the fact that it's such a weak court, nothing's going to get enforced. Even if they prevail, it's not really giving people the justice they want. And it is a reminder of the day of justice,
yes,
the day of judgment, where the King of Kings will judge,
preside over the real court. Is one of the interesting things about this idea of your conscience has to be your police, because there's something called wujdan, which is your conscience, and there's something called sultan, which means the law. And they said the Muslim is between the wujdan and sultan. We follow the law of the land, but greater than that, he follow their conscience. Even if there is no police around, you still you don't run that traffic light. Mm-hmm. There's no police around, you don't run that stop sign. That's called wujdan. And that wujdan, Rasulullah worked on it, built it for 13 years before the law. Because you cannot have society just go by the law without moral principles and conscience and so forth. because in many cases, when the authority or the people maintaining the law become weakened, then people go to chaos, become a laissez-faire, become a chaos, and so forth. But look, during the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a person will put something on the street, and somebody will come and make an announcement about it. No one will dare to go and take someone's property. You know,
Yeah.
the law applied in very few cases. The other was self-regulated.
Yeah.
Like when he said alcohol is prohibited, what did they do? One ayah, but he built it. He built the conscience, prepared them, and they did this like this. Immediately they let go.
They
That
poured it all out.
yeah, Malik Badri wrote a book about that. Allah bless his soul, the well-known psychologist, about how Islam prohibited alcohol. In America, we put it even in the Constitution. We tried to prohibit it. We couldn't because
Yeah.
it has to be wujdan, not only sultan.
Wow. That's such an important point because, I mean, a free society, when you read about it, democracy, one of the presuppositions is that people have a conscience. If you don't have most people self-regulate, you can't have a free society. You would have a very totalitarian society if the only thing that would keep society from turning into total chaos as sultan is just the law rather than one's conscience. So it also keeps society free for people
Yes,
to have a conscience.
absolutely.
The other thing I just wanted to point out is for us to remember how clear the injustice was. So you mentioned how much it hurts when you're not only treated unfairly, but it's such a willful knowing, like knowingly and willfully oppressed.
Yeah.
And yet, despite that, how Yusuf alayhi salam responds to the very people who did that to him
Yeah,
later on in the surah. So we
absolutely.
have to keep this in our minds, is what was done to him and what he then responded with.
Yeah. And one of the Mufassirin said when they put like a committee to look at him, to look what the evidence are, and they looked to Yusuf, said this guy dangerous. We cannot keep him on the street. Our women are gonna be in trouble. One
Yeah.
of the Mufassirin said, okay, we're gonna, we're not like him anymore to be around because he'll be the talk of the town. For parts of the put him in prisons because they said, okay, if that fitna, in their opinion, they blame Yusuf for the fitna of their women, and instead
Yeah.
of blaming them to say you stop doing that. And by
Right.
the way, I just want to say one thing that, and I said that many times. People, sexual harassment, they try to blame women sometimes. They say, "Oh, if she just dressed this way, if she have done this way, of that." No, 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 no. I believe 100% in people responsible of their actions. They cannot blame other people, especially if you wrong somebody to say, "Oh, they invited this." She triggered me, like in domestic violence. She triggered me. She
Yeah.
pushed my button. No, no, no. Before
Mm.
this here, they blaming Yusuf alayhi salam for his look.
Right.
If that interpretation of Mufassirin stands, we can adopt that. We should adopt that. That means they saying that he is wrong to be looking handsome, and
Right.
therefore we're gonna put him in prison because they don't like it. That's why, by the way, they didn't have a sentence with a particular time. You realize that he said
Mm.
hatta hin, and hin could be forever
Fine.
because Allah subhanahu wa taala says in the Quran, "ولكم في الأرض مستقر ومتاع إلى حين." He said to Adam and Hawa alayhi salam that you're going to live on earth hatta hin, until they die.
Yeah.
But there's another hin, by the way, very interesting. The word hin in Quran, sometimes it comes, it means, and 8 months. Something means the morning to the evening. and sometimes means forever. And
Wow.
because look, it says ولكم وسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون. حين تصبحون. That
Mhm.
so from the evening to the morning, that's حين. What حين? And the ayah that I just mentioned, and the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the heen of the palm trees, the dates, the fresh dates. Therefore, it could be the word heen has different interpretation. But the heen here, they said just throw him into prison, forget about him. There's no timeline, there's no court system, there's no verdict actually. You're just going to throw him into prison without the due process. If it wasn't of that dream of the king, maybe Yusuf Ali will not have to get out of prison.
Would have never left. Yeah.
Yeah, never left.
No, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a sign. That's the greatest sign of an unjust system is this idea of indefinite detainment.
Exactly.
There's no definition. There's no time. There's no crime. Even it's just
exactly
throw them in jail.
Yeah, somebody jail based on the women that desire, or let them die in jail.
Right.
Yeah, and there's no court system. There's no due process. There's nothing. And many
And the
people,
kind of
as we speak,
despair.
many people, as we speak today, around the world, are in prisons, and they've been there for decades. As
Right.
nothing, no crime being brought, no, any kind of accusation being brought before the court. It's just unbelievable. They
Right.
just throw them into prison forever.
And the psychological impact of that is it can really make people lose hope because there's no defined time. There's no, I'm going to wait it out till this time. It's just open-ended.
Yeah.
So I will read the next ayah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. ودخل معه السجن فتيان قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا وقال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. Two young men went into prison alongside him. One of them said, I dreamed that I was pressing grapes. The other said, I dreamed that I was carrying bread on my head and that the birds were eating it. They said, tell us what this means. We can see that you are a knowledgeable man, or another way to say it, a person of excellent character. So now we're starting the section of the surah where Yusuf alayhi salam is in prison and he's having this conversation with his two cellmates. And it is really an absolute masterclass in da'wah, in communication, in inviting people to the truth. And I love this set of ayahs because we could study them for weeks and really understand how do we approach people when we want to do that outreach and invite them to Islam. So Imam Majid, I want you to start sort of reflecting on this particular ayah.
Yeah, it's amazing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this ayat, that how Yusuf alayhi salam also sustained himself in prison. Because sometimes a person may be in a calamity and just frustrated, crying all the time, maybe, and emotionally drained, and does not see the opportunity in it, which is, I can understand why other people respond like that. Just have empathy for people who sometimes couldn't take the test of life because of emotional, psychological, mental capacity. But what Yusuf alayhi salam decided to do, to say, okay, well, I was in the bottom of the well, Ghayabat al-Jub, and I contemplated, reflected, believed that there's a hope I can get out. I'm in prison. What should I do with my time in prison? Should I complain about life or I should show ihsan even in person? Like I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna be excellent to other prison mates. I'm gonna show people my beautiful, beautiful personality even in the most difficult circumstances. And therefore, Yusuf alayhi salam, showed them ihsan. As they have seen their dream, that means they have trusted him. No one tell their dream to somebody, that intimate dreams, that something that have seen and they trust them to interpret it, unless they come to know that he's trustworthy. They develop friendship, and they saw how kind he was, how gentle he was with them, how open he was. He was serving them, as some commentator of the Tafsir said, he was serving them in prison. They saw his ihsan, the gentleness, and so forth. And it's very interesting that those people in prisons, they come to him to seek knowledge for something that he knows very well, which is interpretation of dreams. And they are not mentioning anything how he looks. They're not talking about they're talking about his knowledge. And the having them to really to be vulnerable, because one of them actually the dream didn't go well with them.
Yeah.
But Yusuf alayhi salam, knowing that, he took an opportunity. It says, those people trust me. Now I can tell that they're ready to hear what I'm going to tell them, which is something very interesting that the Rasul have done also in his life, that he proved to the people of Mecca how good he was, trustworthy, kind, gentle, honest. And then when he became a prophet, when he stood in the Safa, the Mount of Safa, the first thing he told them, would you believe me if I told you there's horsemen and there's an army behind this mountain about to attack this city? Would you believe me? They said, yes. You never lied to us. ما جربنا عليك من كذب. Then he told them about the Prophet of Allah. From Yusuf alayhi salam, it's very interesting. He did not talk to those people about who he was in terms of showing the message with them as a prophet, because he became a prophet, until he built trust with them. Like in America, we live in a neighborhood. We're supposed to be the best neighbor. We cut our grasses, don't let your grass grow. Don't if you live in an apartment, don't make too loud the noise and party and neighbors start knocking and you're stealing. Now, how we present ourselves, then people become curious about who we are. And then we can invite them to share our beautiful message of Islam with them. But you have to build trust and have people to know us for our beautiful personality and the demeanor and akhlaq. And then we can talk about Islam. It's very interesting.
Yeah, what I love about this is it just gives us this very clear message that you have to be someone who is both accessible because they're willing to talk to him, and exemplary. You have to live your values and also not be so distant from the people that they can't come to you and share their most vulnerable dreams. And he was living these values in the worst environment and among, what we understand to be criminals. And yet his presentation, the way he was as a human being, caused them to notice that he was muhsin, a person of inner beauty. And I'm always struck by how, muhsin, min al-muhsinin, is always the description of Yusuf alayhi salam, who is, which comes from the same word as beauty, as physical beauty.
Husn, yeah, you're right.
Husn, right?
Yes.
And yet it's actually talking, diverting or rechanneling our attention to his inner beauty.
Absolutely right. That's a very beautiful actual connection you made between muhsinin and husn. Yeah, husn. That's why Rasulullah said husn as-surah. We said the beauty of outlook. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very interesting that Rasul sallam, he used to say, Allahumma hassin khuluqi kama hassinta khalqi.
Yeah.
Wallah, make my khuluq beautiful as my khalq. And Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, says the word khalq or khuluq also same roots.
Yeah.
The khuluq is the inward beauty also, and khalq is outward. And therefore, they say that the akhlaq, which is the khuluq, it is greater if important than the physical look. And that's why a person have to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the khalq and khuluq. That's why they say good khalq, yani beautiful look, without good khuluq, is not that good. You know?
Right.
Therefore, I really loved what you just said about husn and of the muhsin, the word hasan, خلق الحسن and وجه الحسن, both of them, the good look and good manners. But
Yeah.
the concentration here on the inward, the beautiful, the inward beauty. So,
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful character.
and
So
by the way, they said inna naraka, we witness, we have seen you. You demonstrated that you're min al-muhsinin. We didn't assume that maybe you're a good guy. Can we ask you, we think that you're a good guy? No. We have experienced that. We have seen you to be a good guy.
Yeah. And so he behaves in this way despite the fact that he was so wrongly imprisoned.
Yeah.
And in an environment that, is among people who are criminals. He doesn't act like he's above them. He's from this noble lineage. He's a prophet of God. And despite all of that, he is within that environment as a muhsin. And that shows us that in any environment we are in, with any group of people, we have an opportunity to exemplify beautiful character.
Absolutely.
So accessibility and beauty of character is the foundation. No one's going to listen to you if you don't have these two qualities as a condition.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Accessibility and beautiful character. You're going to see in the next ayah that Yusuf alayhi salam, now he revealed his prophethood. But before that, they know him as a ordinary person, a regular person.
Mm-hmm.
Now he showed them something like, oh, let me tell you, to believe more, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to really make an introduction. This is an opportunity for me to talk to you about my message, my guidance to you, both of you. Because especially one of them going to die. You want them to die
Right.
Muslim,
Right.
It is, it reminds me of the encounter of Rasulullah has had with this wonderful man that who presented grapes to him after Taif, Addas. His name is Addas. For Rasulullah took the opportunity to talk to Addas about Islam and to reveal his prophet to him after he asked him where you're from and then connected with him and talking about Yunus alayhi salam. The same thing Yusuf alayhi salam doing here, connecting with people first, get to know them, in the human level. Ask them who they are, let them tell you their story, and after you get to know them, there's a rough da'wah, rough da'wah, I call it like pass a pamphlet, in your face, without getting to know people, you need to get to know them and so forth, before you speak to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what the next ayah really exemplifies. Would you like to go ahead and start reading?
قال لا يأتيكما طعام ترزقانه إلا نبأتكما بتأويله قبل أن يأتيكما ذلكما مما علمني ربي إني تركت ملة قوم لا يؤمنون بالله وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون.
He said, I can tell you what this means before any meal arrives. This is part of what my Lord has taught me. I reject the faith of those who disbelieve in God and deny the life to come. So he does something very interesting here, because he doesn't jump into answering their question, although he knows the answer.
Yeah.
But he does first reassure them that he will respond, and he tells them when he will respond so that they feel heard. And that's actually it's actually such an important part of communication. No one will hear you until they first feel heard, and that you're going to address their issue, even if you don't do it right away. You have to let them know, I heard you, and this is when I will come to your question.
Yes. The interesting here, the word Rabb being used in this two ayat.
Mm-hmm.
First, the one of the prisoners says, I have, seen that I provided, drink, in the Asr Khamra. I was squeezing or making the alcohol. The other person said that he saw, bread or something on his head that the bird eating from it. You will see later how Yusuf alayhi salam used the word Rabb, because the king called Rabb, the Lord. But here he said to them that there's no time that they're about to serve us, because when you sit in the prison, you don't know what the next meal look like.
Mm-hmm.
For every time, before they bring us the food, I would tell you what kind of food they're going to bring to us. And that from the knowledge Allah has given me. What he did, he revealed his prophethood. He revealed his prophet. He revealed that he's a prophet. Because in order for him to talk about Allah and divide them to Allah, have to tell them, I have the knowledge. Allah tells me. When he showed them something that amazing, that every time that the food being brought to them, I will tell you what kind of food they're going to bring. Some of the ulama said that Yusuf alayhi salam would give them like a physical evidence of his prophethood, which is knowing what is knowing what kind of food they're bringing, so that he would be able to give them the spiritual food, which is inviting them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want to establish his credibility with them. But it's very interesting that he made us an introduction before he talked about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, and so I just want to point out that there are two different ways to understand this ayah. This translation says that I can tell you what this means before any meal arrives, as if he's giving them a time for when he's going to interpret their dreams. What you're saying is, what it was actually saying is, I'm going to tell you what food is coming before it comes, to show you that I have knowledge of the unseen.
Yes.
So in either understanding, it's giving us a lesson.
Yeah, and actually the Mufassirin said this, like Isa alayhi salam said to the Bani Israel, وَنُنَبِّئُكُم بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ وَتَدَّخِرُونَ فِي بِيُوتِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. I will tell you what kind of food you're storing in your own house. Isa alayhi salam said to them that, so that they tell them that I know the unseen. Like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'll give you an example. One of the people who accepted Islam, he came with the intention to kill Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And actually, he sat at the Kaaba and he said, if it wasn't me having children and I don't have enough money, I will go and kill Prophet Muhammad, kill Muhammad. And therefore, the guy said to him, Don't worry about your children. I'll take care of your children. Go and kill him. Your children like my children. Go and get him. But the man came to Rasulullah. Rasulullah asked him, what brought you to Medina? He said, nothing. My son is a prisoner with you. I'm going to release my son. Rasulullah said, no, wallahi, that's not what happened. You and so sat at the Kaaba. And he told him, if it wasn't I have debts to pay, I have children to take care of. If something would happen to me, I don't know who's going to take care of them. And the man said, I will take care of it. Go and kill Muhammad. The guy said, I swear by Allah, only two of us, even my wife, didn't know that. I testify, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa annaka Rasulullah. You are the Prophet of Allah. He accepted Islam.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows people the prophethood of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by telling him things that they didn't know, things that they think in their head. For Yusuf alayhi salam said, I'm going to tell you what kind of food going to be coming to us. Another example, when they entered Mecca, Abu Sufyan his wife said to him, why did you do this? Why allow him to come to Mecca? You could have rally up the tribe and mobilize people to fight him. Why let him in? Abu Sufyan regretted. Although he let Rasulullah in, he started thinking about himself. Yes, you're right. If I have done this, and that, maybe I could have prevented from Muslim coming to Mecca. Rasulullah come behind him, tapped him his shoulder. He said, whatever you're thinking, it still will not have worked. Abu Sufyan jumped. He said, okay, I'm not going to sit by myself alone. He went and sat with a group of people in Mecca. They start talking, and they are attacking him. Said, why did you allow him to enter Mecca like this? We could have done this, we could have done that. And Abu Sufyan said to them, listen, I'm not going to participate in this conversation. If I were to say anything, this rock here might tell him, listening to us. But Rasulullah came, and he said to them, you said so, you said this and that, you said this and that. And you, Abu Sufyan, if you have said anything, the stone will have told me. He told them what the conversation they had. Rasulullah. They come to know this is not ordinary person. This is a prophet of Allah. For Yusuf alayhi salam, he want to tell them, listen, in order for you to listen to what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you something amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But he did not tell them this magic, this what do you call it? This fortune telling. This is really مما علمني ربي. This is what Allah have told me. This is a prophethood. Why? إني تركت ملة قوم لا يؤمنون بالله وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون. I left a religion of people who do not believe in Allah, they don't believe in Akhirah, and they are denying that there's Allah and there's next life. This is an introduction to them to say he'd rather to go to prison than do the wrong thing. Rather to go to prison, not following the false system that of injustice. He's not going to allow that. Now, this is an opening. You left this religion. What kind of religion did you have?
Mm-hmm.
Now he continued the conversation with them.
Yeah. So the first thing he does, to just summarize, is he shows them some proof of his prophethood. And the second thing he does is he attributes his abilities to Allah, not to his own self. And that's a very important thing, is if people are impressed with you and they're drawn to you and they want to ask you things, don't take this as a cult of personality and now I'm going to have all these groupies around me. Turn that love that they have toward Allah by attributing any gift you have, anything you can offer, to Allah. And then I thought it was very interesting that the last thing he does is he says, he himself had to make the same choice that they are now faced with.
Yeah.
And so he builds this connection with them. He builds a bridge by saying, I made this decision too. I had to make this decision that you are now faced with. And the decision I made is to forsake a false religion.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I love this. He made the example that said, if I can make that leap, if I can let go, I want to ask you to join me to let go.
I'm not asking you to do something I didn't do.
Exactly.
So he keeps building connections with them.
Yes.
Making himself, accessible, exemplary, and saying anything you admire in me is from Allah, and I was where you are now, making this decision. And it's such an important, powerful lesson to us that when we are communicating with people, inviting them to Islam, teaching them about who we are, we have to do it from a position of solidarity, not superiority.
Absolutely. And one of the things here, he revealed also his lineage.
In the next ayah.
Yeah.
In the next ayah,
And
he'll reveal his lineage.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's another lesson, is they have to know who you are.
Yeah.
You have to be yourself. You have to be revealing. You can't be an anonymous person.
Yeah.
Tell your narrative. Tell your story. That's how people trust you, and then they can listen to you.
Exactly.
So we'll start with the next ayah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I can't remember if it's my turn to read or not.
It's your turn.
It is okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واتبعت ملة آبائي إبراهيم وإسحاق ويعقوب ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله من شيء ذلك من فضل الله علينا وعلى الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. And I follow the faith of my forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because of God's grace to us and all mankind, we would never worship anything besides God. But most people are ungrateful.
The lineage here is a spiritual lineage. It's not only physical lineage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because he did not mention the father of Ibrahim. He started with
That's
Ibrahim.
very true.
But he's not talking about Azar. He talked about Ibrahim. Each one of us have a spiritual lineage, as well physical lineage, a biological lineage. And we need to know sometime where the spiritual lineage come from. It comes from Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It comes from the Khadija radiallahu anha. Ummahat al-Mu'minin. That's why they call the mother of the believers. We have mothers, the spiritual mothers. And one of my mothers, Khadija radiallahu anha, I want to see her so badly myself. And this idea of Rasulullah sallam like our father. Okay, as the Quran says, and azwajuhu ummahatuhum, his wives are our mothers. This really established something very important in people bragging about some time of the lineage of their ethnicities or their class. That's why the racism is a false notion of self-worth. Like I've come from this tribe, I come from that tribe. What your spiritual lineage is? Tell me, how far are you in that spiritual lineage? I remember one time a new convert to Islam told me something very moving. He said, I've accepted Islam. After I accepted Islam, I found my family. I said, how? He said, I realized that the beauty of of Islam that I was considered as continuation of all the converts during Rasulullah time. But the Sahaba were converts. The Sahaba were converts. He said, I found myself like when I read the story of the female companions and male companions who converted to Islam, I said, oh, I'm one of those. You know, immediately I identified myself with that community. And I told him that this is so beautiful. Each one of us should think about this spiritual heritage. Go to Ibrahim alayhi salam, go to Nuh alayhi salam. You have deep history in this journey of believers. It's a caravan. It's a caravan that begins with those beautiful people and continue until the day of judgment. Therefore, it is that continuations of the message. In it, then there's people black and white and Chinese, American, Australian. We together at this concept of brotherhood and sisterhood. It's very amazing that this spiritual lineage he talked about. Although biologically, they have this lineage also with those Ibrahim alayhi salam was his grandfather, and Ishaq was his grandfather. Ibrahim was great grandfather, and Ishaq his grandfather, and Yaqub alayhi salam. It is true as well, but he talked about them as the people of millah, of faith, not biological ethnicities and heritage, race. تركت ملة قوم لا يؤمنون بالله والآخرة واتبعت ملة آبائي. The religion of my forefathers, Ibrahim وإسحاق ويعقوب. And then said, ما كان لنا. It was not befitting for us. أن نشرك بالله. Now we talk about why Tawheed. It's not befitting, it's not a just thing to do, it's not the right thing to do to attribute any of our goodness in this life or anything in our life to other than Allah. Why? ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا. This Tawheed itself is a gift that to get to know Allah is something, a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is something very interesting. He said, فضل الله علينا وعلى الناس. You have accessibility.
Yeah.
Take the opportunity. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. Many people, they don't show gratitude. They don't realize Allah is accessible. They get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He makes them excited about Allah. Make them want to know more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't say to them, he didn't say, if we don't do so, they'll be punished. He said, ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. See the beauty? It's the beauty. He said that the bounties of Allah and on us and on people, but people don't show gratitude. Oh, beautiful way of inviting them. Very softening of the heart, you know.
Yeah. He's emphasizing the opportunity and the blessings of it instead of the punishment of those who reject. I mean, I think that's an important lesson for us. He's also, I love the idea that he says, this is fadl, وعلى الناس. This is accessible to everyone. Everyone can join this. This is available to anyone. And he says, الناس, all of humanity. But then he says something else that's very important. And this is repeated so often in the Quran. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. أكثر الناس لا يؤمنون. أكثر الناس something. That most people don't thank Allah. Most people are ungrateful, or most people, do not show gratitude. Because it also emphasizes that while it's accessible to every single person, only a select few will choose it. And so you have to be ready to part with the crowd. It sets them up to understand this is not going to necessarily be popular.
Yeah.
Though it's available to everyone, most people don't take it.
Absolutely. One of the things in the tafsir I was reading that they said that people don't thank Allah for the ni'mah of prophethood. Allah sent you a prophet to bring you closer to Allah. And you denying prophethood, you denying the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to thank Allah that Allah is talking to us. You need to thank Allah that He revealed the Quran. Instead of denying it, you need to thank Him that He spoke to us. He guiding us. For He says, this fadl min Allah, that Allah is speaking to us. It fadl, that's why, they said Umar radiallahu anhu that when they came with a lot of booties of war and a lot of goods came from Syria to Medina. And one of the companions was counting how many camels brought to Medina and so forth. And he said, هذا فضل الله. He said, no. فضل الله الإسلام. This is a material world. هذا مما يجمعون. فضل الله يفرحوا. They become happy with the فضل الله. خير مما يجمعون. Better than the material that you gather. Why he said that to him? Although everything, the money that we have, fadlullah. But the fadl of Allah is the guidance, hidayah. That's why he said, ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا وَعَلَى النَّاسِ. There's the fadl of Allah, the bounties of Allah upon us, that He guides us. And that's why they say the big ni'mah, the big favor that Allah gives to believers is to become a Muslim, to be a mu'min, to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Ni'mah of Islam. Who the ni'mah? The ni'mah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the ni'mah in the other verse. أولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء. The prophet is the ni'mah of Allah. The guidance is the ni'mah of Allah. They become followers of the guidance ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Furthermore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. The ni'mah is Islam. The ni'mah is the best bounty, is the best gift. It's hidayah, it's guidance. And that's why the one of the Sahaba said, if the king of Persia and the king of Byzantium, they come to know how happy we are in our hearts, they would have come and fought us to take that happiness from our hearts. Because the sa'ada, the happiness is in guidance. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. They are not showing gratitude to the message. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إنا خلقنا الإنسان من نطفة أمشاج نبتليه فجعلناه سميعا بصيرا إنا هديناه السبيل إما شاكرا وإما كفورا. That we give human being ability to see, to think, and we guided them, and then they had to react. Either become grateful to the guidance and accept it, or become ungrateful, become kafir, they don't accept it. That's why he said, لكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. You could have said, but most of the people are kafirin. But he used to shukr to tell them that by accepting Islam, by accepting the message I'm telling you, you show gratitude to Allah. By believing in Allah, you accepted the guidance and you become grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can I tell you one thing about my sheikh? My sheikh said to me, I said, I would teach youth, I have youth halaqa and so forth. And thank Allah has someone like him. He said, what are you telling them? You're telling youth to don't pray. What are you telling them? How do you make them pray? And I was naive, I was teenagers. I said, I tell them if you don't pray, you go to hellfire. And that's why every young person have to have a mentorship. Don't teach without to have a mentor. I said to them, I told them that Allah punish you. He said, please don't do that today. I said, why? He said, tell them if you don't pray, you deprive yourself from the mercy of Allah. Tell them the mercy is available. If you pray, then you get more mercy of Allah. You deprive yourself of the mercy. تحرم نفسك من رحمة الله. Now it's very positive because you're depriving yourself. Don't deprive yourself. There's incentive there rather than scaring them. And it's really changed my perspective. That 13 years old, 14 years old telling us, the young people are going to go to hell.
It's such an affirming,
Yeah.
such an affirming message that he's giving them.
Yeah.
And it reminds us also of the role of his own mentor, his father, who instilled in him this sense of identity and his heritage and his lineage, his spiritual lineage, very early on as a child. And that stayed with him because he hasn't had any contact with his father in years and years and years. And yet it was so important to instill that at an early age so that when he's in this position, he's telling them about his heritage and why this all makes sense. And we're, we it's implied that they may know these names, that these names are famous names. Yes. And they're known for being upright, moral people. So it also reminds us of the importance of when we are teaching our own children to instill this sense of identity of who are you and where are you from. And it's not about lineage. It's about how does someone like you behave?
Yes.
You are a person of moral character. That is who you are. This is how someone like you behaves, because we are so driven by our sense of identity. We vote according to our sense of identity. We make decisions based on who would someone like me, what would someone like me do?
That's so
and then he's sharing that with them. And I also just love the idea of a spiritual legacy or a spiritual inheritance.
Yes.
And many people, especially people who have been, taken from their native lands, enslaved, they don't have their lineage. They don't know their lineage, past a certain point. And that the importance of knowing who you are and where you're from, it, and the loss of that, to have that stolen from you is so difficult and such an injustice. And that this idea of taking on a spiritual lineage, bringing back that sense of lineage back to yourself by adopting this spiritual lineage.
No, I like that very much. It's beautiful, and identity is everything, as you said. You know who you are, and I think one of the biggest problem that of people have confidence is the issue of identity, feeling good under their skin. I'll give you another example. Rasulullah, he married Safiya, and then other women used to tell her that, who are you? You don't have, you're not in the Arab tribes. They used to attack her, bullying her. They used to bully her. Rasulullah said to her, anybody, because she was originally Jewish.
Yeah.
She comes Jewish, but he said, if anyone bully you, tell them that I am the descendant of Musa and Harun.
Yeah,
that's it.
Beautiful.
Because her father was fighting with Rasulullah and so forth, and they said, tell them I'm a descendant of Musa and Harun. We should connect her back to the spiritual lineage.
Yeah. And for us to all feel that way, that these are our forefathers, and
yes,
and therefore, how then should we behave if this is who we are and this is where we come from? It's so powerful. Jazakallah khairan, Imam Majid. We can stop here
Inshallah.
Today.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Until next time, thank you for listening to us. We hope you enjoyed this conversation, and if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Share this episode with others who may be interested in the meaning of the Quran. Also, we absolutely love hearing from our listeners. Tell us your reflections at Quran.conversations Instagram page. We read every single one. Finally, we hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. This week's reflection prompt is: Yusuf alayhi salam is wrongly imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit, one of the worst calamities a person could endure. And yet, it was a protection for him from a greater threat of wronging his own soul. Have you ever gone through a difficult experience that ended up being a hidden protection? Until next time, salam.